podcast that floats down here.
Hi, I'm Melissa, your Stephen King veteran.
Hi, I'm Ben, the Stephen King and horror film fanboy.
And hello, I'm Luke, your first-time Stephen King reader.
Hi, happy Friday night. Welcome back. We are reading tonight Joyland. Dun, dun, dun. By the way, I totally think the cover, it doesn't do it justice. Like, I get it, but whatever. This was published in 2013, so we're creeping up on present day. We're getting closer, although not the setting of the book, but the publication date was. This book was a measly 283 pages. The dedication was for Donald Westlake, and I am joined, as always, by Ben and Luke, my lovely brothers. Hello.
Hey, we've been upgraded to lovely. That's a step up, probably a first.
Right.
I went out with our sister tonight, so I'm in a good mood.
Hey, that's
welcome.
not bad. Yeah, that's always a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. I'm going to read the back cover, which is, I think, way more entertaining than typical. Still not good, but way more entertaining than typical. Here we go. All-time best-selling author Stephen King, in really big letters, which is funny, returns with a novel of carny life and death. College student Devin Jones took the summer job at Joyland, hoping to forget the girl who broke his heart, but he wound up facing something far more terrible: the legacy of a vicious murder, the fate of a dying child, and dark truths about life and what comes after, and that would change his world forever. Life is not always a butcher's game. Sometimes the prizes are real. Sometimes they're precious. A riveting story about love and loss, about growing up and growing old, and about those who don't get to do either because death comes for them before their time. Joyland is Stephen King at the peak of his storytelling powers, with all the emotional impact of King's masterpieces such as The Green Mile and The Shawshank Redemption. Joyland is at once a mystery, a horror story, and a bittersweet coming-of-age novel, one that will leave even the most hard-boiled reader profoundly moved.
I have one question. At what point do we become hard-boiled readers? When does that happen?
I think that's a really good question. I don't know if we're there yet.
I don't think we're
but
there.
I think we might be like soft-boiled at this point. We're definitely not raw.
Fair. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. We have to give ourselves the spin test, right? Just to see if...
Yeah. Why don't you guys do some shout outs for us? And then I'm going to jump in with some of the inaccuracies I find in the back cover. We're going to start with those. Okay,
Well,
John.
all right. First, if you're new here, welcome. We kindly ask you to subscribe or look for us on iTunes and all of them. If you've been here before, welcome back. Thank you guys. Yeah. So,
Okay, I have to
of
start
all
with
the books we've read, this was one
of
of them.
Stephen King's storytelling. I'm going to start with that. The peak of Stephen King's storytelling. Not a bad book. I'm not saying that, but like, I was going to say, have you read other Stephen King books? We have. I don't know if this would be the pinnacle. Anyway, so that was a problem. I also don't know if Devin's world changed forever from this.
I think hardly from the story. Like, what I would say the main prime plot is, more so, and we'll get to this, just being dumped for the first time. I think that changed his life more than anything. That was like the most pivotal thing he went through.
I mean...
And like dropping out of school for a semester. Not the events that occurred, just he took a semester off school. I mean, good for you. Been there, done that. But
yeah, I mean, I'm like trying to think of like, was there a pivotal thing in the book and all that? I mean, he saved a girl's life because of what he learned before. He saved a guy's life.
Saving the girl's life is like, it's not like he went out of his way. I don't know. Like,
Well, that's what I'm
This is
saying.
you
Like
do in the
he
choking
had,
moment. It wasn't
well,
as
he had
like
already had lifeguard
I
first
know,
day training,
I
and
know.
so that didn't change his life,
I would say
and
the
like so.
only life-changing thing he has is evidence of what I'm going to go ahead and say is definitely Shine and evidence of ghosts being real. That maybe that changes what he does in the future. We don't see anything
Got
from him in the
laid.
future, really.
Got laid. Yeah.
Right. Like those are pretty big things, but we don't know how that affects his life moving forward. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
they're big.
He went back to school.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
So
interesting
anyway,
back cover.
I hate to like knock on the book. I liked the book. I just didn't like back. I really want to know who gets this kind of job and how much of the story they read when they write these.
Yeah.
Like,
So one thing, doing a little bit of research for this, going off the publication such itself, this was actually published as a paperback originally, and then like once sales and everything were there, they're like, we might do a hardcover, and they finally re-released it on hardcover. So this one did kind of backwards releasing under paperback because to fit kind of the genre of the not true crime, but crime, novella style to peak to those, and like learning that, I'm like, okay, that's kind of an interesting take on it. Like, had I known that back in the time, back when it came out, I probably would have bought this knowing it's Stephen King, and probably could have got it for 12 15 12 to 15 bucks on paperback. It's like,
I
okay,
did get it for $15 on paperback
see,
like a few months ago.
yeah, so just saying,
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna jump in with my like first big thought. I feel like this was kind of Stephen King light and fluffy. Like I didn't feel dragged down into the depths of scary hotelness. It wasn't like an entire town was being burned to the crisp by either each other or a bad guy. There wasn't aliens. There weren't levels. There were like it was just a kid. I mean, there was some other stuff going on, and it was Stephen Kingy, and yeah, okay, there was like the killer guy, but like that was so secondary. I don't know. But it was like fluffy, right? Kind of just
Absolutely. And I actually think that's why I thoroughly enjoyed this book because
yes.
it was like just sitting with a bag of potato chips. Like it was there, it's not too deep, it's just light, it's just fun. There's really nothing that dire going on. There's a scene that it gets hairy, but even then, like it's so far at the end, you're like, oh, it's gonna be fine. Like I don't know, like I was never worried.
It's like a Netflix binge show,
Yeah, it
right?
absolutely is. And I thought it was very enjoyable for how light it was. Like we've done
Mhm.
so many of these books lately that seems like, man, it's like you're just digging deeper into a well, and no pun intended on some of the books that had wells in them. But this it was a nice reset of something light and crispy and flaky, and it's what I needed, I guess, right
Yeah.
now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it sound like I'm knocking it because this is the first book. Let me look. Hold on. I have all of I finally updated my shelves. All of the books we've read are right here. I would say other than next month's book, which I've read twice in the last 2 years, this is the only book I've gone through twice before we recorded.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because one, it was this big.
Mhm.
That's not big. I can
Yeah.
do that. And like I enjoyed hanging out with Devin and Aaron and Tom. They were fun. I liked Mike and Annie. Like I liked their relationship. She wasn't like the typical like overprotective mom because she mellowed. Like I don't know. It was good characters. I even renamed myself Madame Fortuna because she was awesome. I enjoyed this book. It just didn't like
Oh no,
it wasn't much.
I
And that
agree
was
with you.
okay.
I really like this book. I really liked it the first time I read it when it was called A Day at Horrorland, and it was written by R.L. Stein in 1996. Because it totally felt like a Goosebumps book. But then I said, made that comment to Melissa, and Goosebumps is scarier than this book is. And on the first read through, it's like, okay, I'm reading it as a Stephen King horror, everything like that. I'm not reading it as a Stephen King coming of age book, which he writes those. I forget that he writes those. This is an absolutely one of those with a little bit of kinginess tied in. And yeah, I too really enjoyed this book. I actually made it through 3 times because I usually listen like as soon as we record. The next day I start listening to the next one, and then I'll try to get a second time in. And this one's quick enough. I was actually able to get a third one in, and yeah, I mean Devon's a great character. Lane is a great villain. Like sneaky villain. Spoilers: Lane's the bad guy. Uh,
And
kind of
that
thing.
was like, I mean, like, I knew the bad guy had to be one of like 2 or 3 of the worker people,
Mhm.
but Lane was not one of the ones that I thought. I thought it was like the manager guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty obviously him from early on. And then later on, it's like, oh, now they're trying to throw some evidence that maybe it's Freddy, or maybe it's Tom, not Tom, the other guy, Edward, Eddie. It's
The
like,
guy who died.
yeah, I just wasn't buying
Yeah.
it. It was just always kind of like, well, this is the only guy that's questionable to me. He's a little too cool.
See,
Is
the
how
only
there's
reason
like cheesy cool, in my
the-
opinion.
the only reason I kind of had blinders on the first time through is because of the Lacey story kind of thing. I don't know. I'm sorry, Gerald's game. Gerald's game, where literally the bad guy thing actually was just a random bad guy, mentally challenged person that we never met before. And so I had that plan in my head, like maybe this is just a guy that somehow they randomly capture. And I didn't put the clues together because King does a good job of leaving clues throughout the story of, hey, this Lane, like the hair dye, the cap thing. And then also Lane's the one who told Jonesy about the murder in the horror house original, or the horror house being haunted. He didn't mention it being the murder, but obviously he's going to tie it together. So my question on that was that his way of, like, the way he gets off, like telling about his murders but not revealing kind of thing? Like,
I'd say it could be. It could be like, oh, the riskiness of like bringing up something in that vein, right? Like I could see that. Or it could just be him adding to the mystique of just the hauntedness of it to make people question everything about it to get them off the potential scent, maybe. Like almost like throwing so much mysticism in there just to make sure it's like, oh, it's all hearsay. Why would I believe that? Oh, haunted, schmaunted. Like, I don't know. I could see it going either way with that for sure.
Yeah, I could too. I think I'm a naive reader. Like I read with no expectations. I don't read crime like and I went through a whole phase of like the Sue Grafton novels and all of those like very cookie cutter mystery type things. I never spent any brain power trying to figure out. I'm like, they'll tell me eventually. And I read fast enough. I'll get there quick. Why waste my time thinking when I could just speed read through it and get there? So Lane hit me completely by surprise, except that once it was him, I'm like, oh, well, of course it's him. That makes sense. I was fine with it. Can I talk about the ghost though? Like, completely unnecessary part of the story. Other than to like pique Devon's interest, I was like, this could be a really good non-supernatural Stephen King story. The ghost felt a bit irrelevant to me. The fact that now I will say Stephen King world, the shine is there. Totally fine. I buy it. I accept it. I'm cool with that. Like I'm down. The ghost felt unnecessary. I don't know. Like, couldn't there just have been a dead girl?
Benj, any thoughts on that?
no, I absolutely agree with you. The only thing the dead girl plays into it is not even Tom's seeing of her, it's Mike's seeing of her.
Yeah.
And so Mike, can kind of, he sees her standing there and she's able to be set free and all that. But that's all it is. It's quite literally, he sees her, she waves, and she's gone. So it's like, yeah, you could completely write out the haunted aspect of it, take that complete out, keep it a murder mystery thing, and it works 100%. I don't know why he
Except
had
for Mike getting visited by dead Ed
yeah.
to then warn his mom about Dev being in trouble. So like maybe it sets up that part of it, which is fine. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it suffers. I think that's the only part that probably suffers from this being such a quick read. Like that could have been explored and deepened maybe to make it make more sense. But I agree, it's a little unnecessary. It's just not as developed as I think it could be if it were one of the bigger books. Like I think that would be a huge piece
Yeah.
in one of, we'll call it a bigger Stephen King book, a more full-fledged bleeding heart Stephen
Even
King
like
book. But
all the dead girls, right? All the bodies, the trail that he's left across the South, like that's an interesting story in and of itself.
right.
So like I'd be cool with that going supernatural, and then I don't know, the ghosts of all the dead girls coming back to attack it, like that'd be
That
cool.
feels very Stephen King. That like if that
Right.
was the depth of it, I think it's just because, like I said, because it's so brief. The book in general, that didn't have enough time to unpack in a way that really sells it well in the way it is currently. But
Yep.
I still liked it just because this is light and flaky. Like it's like, okay, there's a lot of cliche stuff in this book, which is why I wasn't surprised that it was Lane. I was just like, yeah, it's gonna be really railroad track murder mystery. It's like, pretty obvious who this is gonna be. I don't know. To me, it was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Melissa, I think you did it on the nail on the head for my part. I didn't even didn't really care who the murderer was. I was more invested in Devin's story, you know, in his tale and learning about just his, the ins and outs and everything like that. So yeah, the Lane part was like, oh yeah, that's still a thing.
I guess that's what we're getting to. Like, I guess that's what we're working towards.
We need a crescendo, so
Like there's got to be some plot that happens. We can't just hang out with Devin and his suicidal ideations, which is a really fun way to say that, by the way. I appreciated
suicidal
that.
ideation. Yeah, it couldn't just be, the climax of the story is Devin's first climax. Like, it couldn't just end there. That wasn't good enough.
And third.
And third. So yeah, like let's talk about some of the other side characters if we can. You mentioned Tom and Aaron. I thought were great. They were basically the two other kids that were down in South Carolina working for the summer with Devin, and they were in the same working group, and they got to become good friends. They were also rooming in the same kind of house hostel type situation, and it was great. And they became great friends, and like they were like some of those fast friends that you just connect and it's just right. And they were perfect for him, especially when he finds out about that dirty bitch Wendy. Oh man,
Wendy, she's in your past.
Yeah,
and
that was rough, but they were exactly what he needed right then. They gave him a hard time, but they also took care of him when he needed it, but also actively fucked off when he needed that too. Like,
and they weren't flat two-dimensional characters.
Absolutely. Completely
They could easily have been like the funny best friend and the cute little girl sidekick, and they weren't. They like Tom had some depth and he had some faults, and Aaron had some spunk back there that wasn't just the cute girl. Like they were the right friends. And I think my favorite part is that they were friends as grown-ups, and and it was a true kind of way you keep friends from when you're young, is that you become Facebook friends and like old acquaintances, but that I can call you anytime and like I know you're there, right? That's exactly what it's like to grow apart and still know that I could not see you for 10-15 years and we talk and it's like no time passed. I appreciate that.
I started to jump back to the Lane and climax part of the story thing, but that's one thing too. We had the whole future backstory already by that point, so we know Devin's getting out of it. It's like, it's like, okay, so how does, just what's the way he gets out of it kind of thing is the only point. I say this in almost every King book. He spoils himself and it annoys me. And I just get used
like
to
that,
it.
do you? It's an ultra common writing technique. Basically start at the ending and then work your way back, or give away the end game. But how do you put the pieces together? That consistently seems to bother you. I've noticed.
It does. It genuinely does.
I don't think you had that problem in it.
No, because I didn't know how the ending of it was. I knew
for
how
the grown-ups
first half ended, or where it led to, and that's fine. But the grown-ups didn't bother me. There was still
a full story, full arc to go.
Yeah. So
and that's why I brought that up, because there was unknown, because we weren't being told by anybody past 1985. And I feel like the older King gets, the more often that happens, because that's happened more and more in the last 5 or 6 books, as opposed to what we read in the first half of the show.
So the other main side characters we have are Annie and Mike. Aside from all of the interesting carny amusement park people that we meet. There's a lot of great characters in there too. Those are more one-dimensional
Oh, see, yeah.
peacemakers. I mean, there's definitely full-fledged characters, but
Yeah,
they're just we
there's
don't
one
get
I
as
want to
much.
talk about. Yeah, there's one I want to talk about. I'll let you go talk about Annie and Mike
So yeah,
first.
Annie and Mike. This is a young mother, single mother with a boy who has muscular dystrophy, and she's Benji's video is freaking out. It looks awesome, and he's back. But she's doing her best to raise her son, knowing that he's got a certain clock on his head and won't live past a certain age. And the biggest thing that she struggles with is keeping him safe, keeping him protected, and also this idea of not wanting to have the last good time, which I thought was a really, really great moment, right? Like, she's doing her best to make his life wonderful, but she's afraid of going out and doing something because that might be such a good time that he can, whatever his body can decide to shut down at that point, saying this was good enough. And so she lives in fear of that, playing that final good time card. And eventually, between Dev and Mike, they kind of convince her, like, no, we both need this. Like, we both need to get out there and live. You can't just it's a sheltered type thing that they work through all together, and it's really, really well done on the way Devin gets to meet them, and I wouldn't say infiltrates, but gets to know them and lets her know that it's okay to still allow him to be a real human as much as you can, rather than keep him cooped up.
I relate with Annie and feel for her so much, particularly in that moment you were talking about where she admits that, like, I don't want the last time, because I'm like, so my kids they're still kids, but my oldest just turned 16. We had a banquet for one of her sports yesterday, and like, I'm watching seniors who she's been friends with for 2 years give like their going away speech. And I'm like, that's going to be my kid, right? And I've done the last first day of kindergarten, and like, I'm not far off from the last day of elementary school, and I'm not far off from the last day of high school. And I'm starting to feel that downward slide of parenthood, because I'm on the back half of raising, right? Once they're all grown up, like, parenthood doesn't stop, but that childhood part of it. So it's been hitting me lately of like, that is a hard place as a mother. Your kids are grown, but 18 years is really quick. Annie got 10 and knew it was only going to be 10. And as hard of a time I am having with the idea of, my kid got her first like checking account today, and that shouldn't hit me weird, but it hits me weird because, like, it's almost over, this part of it. For her, it's gonna be over, and is over, and she's not even 30 and has buried a child and doesn't get to, at 40, take him, to his graduation in high school, and at 50 walk him with them, you know what I mean? Like, see his wedding. And no one else in her life will remember him. So why would you want that to end? You don't want to mark the ending, because that's it. And there is no going back for her. She is not going to talk to her dad anymore. If she moves on with her life, they're not going to know who Mike was. So I wonder if Annie and Mike ever, or not Mike, Annie and Devin ever, like,
After
became,
that final
yes,
scene.
yes, like, not together or anything, just
I would think seeing Dev and how he is, I would assume he would have attempted to stay in touch. He would have been the pusher of it to stay in
no,
contact
but
with
he's
her.
not a pusher. Like,
He's not a pusher.
so,
But with
like,
her, he was. Like, that was the
yeah,
one weird
maybe.
thing. With her,
I think
he
so.
was the pusher. He was the not aggressive, but the instigator.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think
kinda
she
thing.
needed that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that was what she needed. That's kind of what I actually wrote in my note, is they were exactly what he needed at that point in his life, and he was exactly what they needed too. Like, it was it was a really nice moment between the three of those, and it was good for all three of them once they
Yeah.
kind of got past the Rocky protective mother bear thing, which I get, totally understand why she would be that way. I mean, I wasn't saying she was doing anything wrong, but she
Oh
needs to
no,
let
yeah.
him live too, and that's what I think Dev convinces her of. It's not going to be the last time. You're all he has too, and you're preventing him from having any kind of life, whatever limited aspect it might be.
I think too, Devin's like the perfect age for that, right? Like he's a grown up,
Mm-hmm.
right?
A
Like
bridging grown up, a bridging
right,
adult.
like he's an adult, but he's an adult who's really never been an adult before. So he's still close enough to remembering what 10 really is
Mm-hmm.
without being a parent,
Not as
without
a
having
parent. Yep.
he has never been really on his own before right now, and he's always been a kid. And so even though he's an old kid, he's still a kid, but with enough function to be able to like help another adult move past that in an adult way without being a little kid throwing a fit about it. I don't know. I appreciated that he was between their ages.
Mm-hmm.
So here comes the part in every episode where Benji bitches about little kids being too smart. No, this one, not at all. Mike was a perfect 10-year-old going through what he's going through. Like, for a normal 10-year-old, no, he's a bit smarter than a normal 10-year-old would be. But a kid in that situation has to grow up fast, has to know, what's coming, what's going on, and you have to learn, and that's all you get. So Mike was a perfect character for that, to have the shine, to be that guide and that connector for Dev and Annie, and to help them bridge, especially Annie, bridge that gap from, like Melissa was saying, from parenthood to not. He made the transition very smooth for her.
I would love to add to what you just said in that. Sorry, I got distracted by Luke's waving arm. Okay.
Good night,
ADD.
Glenn.
I'm back.
Glenn Dog's going to bed.
Hi. Good night, Glenn. Not that you can hear me. Oh, also, I think there's something to be said for being an only child with a young mother.
Exactly what the point I was going to be making. Yep, absolutely.
Right? Like, not only is he having to live with things that most 10-year-olds have never had to deal with, he's doing it with a mom who's, I mean, he's 10 and his mom is still in her 20s. And she's a single mom, and there's no other kids, and there's not a lot else. So when you're a kid being raised by
An individual.
basically a kid, right? And you're it, when you're raised by when that's all you talk to, that raises your level of verbal communication and the way you communicate. It's why, and I say this not as, it's why oldists tend to seem older at a certain age than others, because for a long time we only talked to other adults, right? Like there's actual research behind some of that. Now, as an only, that it compounds because there never becomes kids to sort of communicate with. So, especially as secluded as he seems.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's exactly the point. I mean, the combination of the one-on-one relationship that he has in this seclusion lifestyle that they kind of have, I mean, he's not going to school, really. I mean, it doesn't seem like it. And it's almost like, yeah, why? And clearly he's not being neglected in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was very natural for a young kid in that situation, with the history and everything that he has, along with the shine. Like, yeah, I thought he felt really well written for the age, for sure. I agree.
Yeah. So the one character I wanted to talk about of the Carnies and of Joyland is Mr. Easterbrook.
Yeah.
I loved Mr. Easterbrook. That opening speech, I kind of felt as Tom was. He's kind of the Jesus of fun. And it's like, yes, because had I had somebody sell me like that, like on a job, we're not here to sell insurance. We're not here to sell real estate. We're here to sell fun. And who can put on their resume when they're 40 years old? I spent the summer of 1973 selling fun. Dear Lord, that's just great. And I see how you said most characters seem somewhat one-dimensional. He really didn't. Like, for his little interaction that we got from him, you could tell that he genuinely enjoyed his work. He cared about his workers and he loved what he did. And it's, he was struggling. He had a hard time with it, but he was old as hell too, but he was still kicking. And so I think he was just one of the coolest characters that we met through the entire story. And I wish we had more time with him.
When he died.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah.
But, 93.
Oh yeah. He died of too many candles on his cake.
Aw. I liked that, like the scene on that first day in the park when they had Devin go wear the fur. We got to talk about wearing the fur though too, right? Like we got to talk about that. But like I don't remember which woman character of the Carney people it was, but she's like, you have to go. Mr. Easterbrook always eats his lunch on the first day here, and somebody has to be there, and there has to be. Why am I going to get fired? No, but he will be very disappointed. It's like, I get that, right? Like there are things that are worse than losing your job. It's if you love your boss that much and he's made that great of a work environment that his disappointment, not even anger, not just his disappointment is cause for like, I don't want to be that person. So he's like a good boss. It's a good place to be.
And that's what she even said too. She followed that up with like she was basically saying, yeah, no one's gonna get fired, but he's gonna be disappointed, and that's even worse. And that's probably due to the fact that he's a good person, and not only that, he's a good man. And in this line of business, that is few and far between. So like, let's not mess that up. Like, come on, he deserves everything that we can give to him because, like Benji, you said, like that speech, he loves what he does, and he's been doing it forever. So many years, and like this is his thing, and his passion is infectious, right? Like I believed him. Like I wanted to go out there and start selling fun with that speech. I wanted to be on his team, and like that's the kind of guy leads by example. Like he is passionate, and he's leading others to be passionate about what I like to call give a shititude. He is encouraging people to care at all about what they're doing here. It's not just, hey, you're here for a day, let me put you on this ride. It's no, you're creating this environment, and it's got to be magical throughout the entire experience for each individual there. And yeah, I think he does a great job. He's a great character for sure. And I didn't mean to say that they were all one-dimensional and flat. We just get limited time exposure to them. Because there are a lot of the old timers that we get like one conversation with, and we're like, those are all real seeming people. Like you can just imagine the guy back behind one of the tents, and he's like, I got you. Like you're about to pass out because you're wearing the fur, which is basically the big, dog costume that weighs probably 60 pounds, and it's gonna make you 50 degrees hotter than it is outside. And just every person that we meet at the amusement park seems like a real person, and even more so than some of the other stories, these shorter stories that we've read by King.
Mm-hmm. I completely off topic, sort of. I'm reading the book called The Disney War, which is about like the Michael Eisner, Roy O. Disney big giant blow up. Mm-hmm. And they talk about every executive goes and wears a costume for at least one session. Every single one at some point. Even the author of the book, they had him go play Goofy for a 30-minute thing. So it's really interesting that I'm in the middle of that book where that's the opener, was him describing that experience. And this one, and it's the same kind of feeling. This guy who's telling this nonfiction story, that's exactly how Devin described it. Like, yeah, it's hot, and yeah, you're overwhelmed, and yeah, you're like, you can't always see the kids, but there is nothing like the feeling of those kids being there because they just know what to do. I think that's cool. Also, I never want to do that.
So one off-topic comment too is I heard a line in this. I've heard it once before when I watched the movie Goldfinger. Miss Bond, what do you want me to tell you my plans? No, I want you to die. Or do you want me to beg? No, Mr. Bond, I want you to die. I heard that that I heard it again when I re-listened to it. I've heard that referenced like 4 times now in the last 2 weeks in different mediums, just randomly. I've only heard it one time before in the movie. I listened to this book twice and then heard it 4 times and then heard it a third time, or a third
That's
time
when you
again.
start looking for a new car and you're like, oh, I like that car. I never see them. And then you see 15 within like the
Exactly.
next. Yeah, they're everywhere. Like as soon as it's peaked, your brain latches onto those things a lot quicker. It is funny how often that happens.
Yeah. So.
All right. Have we hit all of our big ideas? Is there anything I'm missing?
No, I mean, I think there's a lot to say about the book still, but there's a lot of. We'll see where the questions go. How about that?
Okay. Here we go. Sorry, I just got distracted. Felicia in the chat just said she wouldn't mind being Snow White one day at Disney. I tell you, I'd like to be Wendy Darling. That would be like if I had to be somebody, I'd be Wendy Darling. Okay, complete sidebar. All right, here we go. Question number 1. Okay, so we've talked about how this is really for being kind of build a whole bunch of other things and right, also a knockoff of Goosebumps. Really, this is a coming of age story. The very first book Stephen King wrote was also a coming of age story. Carrie was a coming of age story. So thinking about the fact that Joyland, here we are 30 plus years after, 35 years after Carrie came out, 2 very different versions of the coming of age story, right? How do these stories compare? And what does that tell us about Stephen King's sort of storytelling styles, thinking about his first book as a coming of age versus this one?
And they're about 40 years publishing apart from each other.
Roughly. Because this is 2013.
35. Just about 35. 38.
I was going to say, I thought Carrie was 73 or 74.
74.
75.
And then this
okay.
is, yeah. So, okay.
2013. Yeah.
Whatever.
But anyway,
Pretty good rough guess. Hey, it was just a guesstimate.
Hold on.
So I'm gonna jump on this one really quick. He got old is the best way I can put it, and it's not a bad thing. He got more sentimental in his age, in the sense of one coming of age versus another. Now you could also throw in the body of a very good coming of age tale, and I'd even throw in It under that category, because those kids were they were a little bit under the coming of age style, but still had to go through a lot. But just based off of Carrie to this, it's his maturity level has grown up. He sees what's more, like comparing these two, he sees what's more important in the everyday life compared to, oh, the girls were mean to me and I'm gonna get revenge on that, and then unintentional revenge or whatever, kind of snap into the mindset of, I'm going to live my life and I'm just going to see where everything falls and goes, kind of thing. So the easiest answer is he got old, but he got more sentimental, which again, not a bad thing.
So I think there's a vast difference between these two books, Carrie and Joyland. And the main difference is the narrator style. The frame for this story is incredibly different because this is an old man writing about a single summer 40 years ago, right? Like this, it's different than telling the story of a prepubescent or pubescent girl in the time that that's happening and dealing with her emotions and her magical abilities, psychoactive abilities. And it's different because this is an old man writing about being a young man. So it's Stephen King writing at his age level with his own personal experience and projecting it onto, you know, a faux history of a character. So I think they're both coming of age stories, but the frame is so different. I don't think there's much to really compare directly between them, if that makes sense. Just because where the person telling the story is coming from is completely opposite.
See, I kind of agree with you. I feel like he's so much more mellow because this is a light story, even though there's, you know, dead people and bad guys and ghosts and shine and dead kids and whatever. It's like a lot of those pieces are there, right? You've got an angry somebody, I just you've got that horror idea going. This is somebody trying to prove something to me. Most of the characters in here are not very um what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, I don't like most of them. Even the ones we're supposed to feel sorry for are not good characters. They're very one dimensional. They're very black and white. Everybody has redeeming qualities in this one. Even Lane,
hmm
like, was a fun dude, right? There isn't anybody I dislike in this story. Even Eddie, the jerk guy, had redeeming qualities in the end. So I feel like this, yes, the stories are different. Yes, the framing is different. Yes, they're both set right around early 70s, right? Technically, it's the same setting. To me, this is just an author who has the experience of time and age to be able to focus on finding the good in everybody as opposed to like an angry early 20s kid who, is still probably hitting some angst of like, I hate the world and the world is terrible. Plus, we know, right? He was an alcoholic. So, how much of that is in those early works of that pain and whatever? Remember Cujo and how horrible that was? I haven't felt that kind of just like rage in a lot of this. This is fluff.
Yeah.
It's light. I liked it.
And in all reality, you could say the same thing about 11/22/63, the last book on the list. Like a very good in-depth story, but not a lot of anger in it. You know.
Or the anger was very centralized to the character of Lee Harvey Oswald, and we observed it from the outside as opposed to feeling it ourselves.
Yes.
And even like
And the two other guys too, the janitor's dad and her, what's her name's ex-husband.
Her husband, yeah.
Yes.
Those were like
Yes.
the three characters that had hate in them. Everyone else was pretty chill.
Yeah.
To some extent.
And like even like the yellow card guys and the green card guys, the orange card, the card guys
Cardmans.
did not feel like, I know they were supposed to be like this catalyst for like going back, but they didn't feel nearly as imperative to me as like in Insomnia when you had Lothos. And I just, it just felt, even though it was a big book and it was lighter also. He feels lighter to me in the back half in the last 10-ish years, right? He feels like a lighter writer because I feel like his person probably has lifted because he's not drinking, he's got his established career, his kids are all grown. He like all those things that you live through in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s as you're trying to, like, he's like, fuck it, I'm old. I'm good. This is good.
I want
So
to write
he
about
did-
a carnival. All right, I'm gonna do
Cool.
that. I'm gonna go hang out with some carnies for a while to get
He
the
did
lingo.
make a total burn on Dick Cheney in this, which I thought was hilarious
Yeah,
and
that
very
was pretty
Stephen
funny.
King. I'm like, ooh, King probably tweeted that at some point and just
Probably.
pulled that in.
Yeah, I did like that it seems like one of those, he just wanted to go hang out at a carnival for a while just to get, to learn how to talk the talk and walk the walk, just to do it. He's like, I might as well write a book about this.
Okay.
And then he did. He's like, okay, whatever. I'll knock this out
All
in
right.
3 weeks.
Question 2. This is really just a me question because, like I said, I read through it a second time today and I sort of got it. And then I did some research online and I still kind of got it, but I also think it's dumb. So I'm just going to ask, did you understand that it's not white?
In what context? Like, I don't recall the line.
It basically comes down to, this is like the thing that kept coming back to Mike. He had a dream and he woke up, and the only thing, this is like the day after he met Devin for the first time, and he
Okay.
talks to him the next day and he goes,
Yeah.
it's not white.
Yeah.
Do you know what that means? And he's like, I have no idea. And he's like, well, I just came
Okay.
across it.
Yeah,
thought
I
you'd
have
know."
I have a guess on it. So
Go
but
for it, Ben.
Go ahead, Luke.
No, go for it.
He's talking about his hair. He's talking
I
about
think it's the hair dye.
Lane's hair because he saw the hair dye flaking and he thought it was gray or white coming through, and
It's not white, it's blonde. And
Yeah.
that was, yeah. So
That's the
I
only thing
had
I
to,
can think of.
it is, but only because like I asked it online. I didn't ask it. I like looked it up online. And then I was reading it again. I was like, I mean, I guess so, but it was so like I think that's what I mean by like this was fluffy. Here's this big giant. If that had been, I don't know, Richie Tozier having some sort of like dream come to him, or Danny Torrance having some sort of dream come to him, we would have been bashed over the head with what that meant. There was one line on the whatever the wheel, the Carolina spinner or whatever, where it was like, oh, it's not white, it's blonde, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, it took me 2 times through and looking it up online to catch it. It's like, I feel like that maybe should have been a little bit harder driven.
see, I love that that was just very subtle, just that little all throw off kind of because yeah, and I think that's my big criticism with King is when he repeats and hammers you over the head with crap over and over. This book never hammers you over the head with information. It's
Maybe I like being hammered. It could be a me problem. I don't know.
So, can I say, like, the main piece of evidence we had about this killer was the tattoo thing, and it was really quick to me. Well, that's probably not a real tattoo. Like, it's just like it was like I've gotten a henna tattoo at an amusement park. Like, we're at a fucking amusement park. People are getting fake. Like, I was like,
I know, but it was 1973. Like, how? I don't
it
know how
just to me
prevalent
was
that was
like
back
they're.
then.
I don't know if it's like they were just
Okay.
focusing on it. Like, hey, this is the only piece we've got. It's like not a good one. Like, I don't know, not a good piece of information. Not a great piece of evidence, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that just goes back to like the dead girl and the killer thing was so unimportant to this book. Which leads me to my third question. Here we go. So this is billed as a hard case crime novel, right? It was literally it has the little logo. It's a hard case crime, brings you the best in hard-boiled crime fiction from lost pulp classics to new works by today's most powerful writers, all in handsome and affordable editions. The yellow ribbon represents your assurance of quality. www.hardcasecrime.com. Okay.
Okay.
This is supposed to be a
I'll tell you,
crime novel.
The audiobook doesn't explicitly sell it that way.
No. I will tell you, I actually haven't opened the book. I listened to the audiobook, but it says it on here. Okay. This is a hard, in fact, when I was choosing books for this year, I was really nervous about this book. I'm like, oh, it's like a pulp novel. Is that going to fit with what we're doing? You know what? Stephen King wrote it. It's short. We're doing like it's coming right after 11/22/63. We're going to need a short one. This I'm just going to pick it. It'll be fine. So here's my question for you. How true does it stay to the true crime, or not crime, but to the hard case crime genre? Why do you think that?
Sure. I mean, it's definitely a murder mystery ghost story. Like I would say that is what the book is, with a coming of age story along the way, right? Like, because you have to make the main character interesting, and so that's a kind of an easy thing to write about. He does a great job. Yeah, I mean, it's a hard case story. That doesn't mean it's difficult or complicated. That's just what the bone structure of this book is. And is it great at doing that? It's okay. I mean, it's all right. The book itself is so light. I don't think it needs to be that thrilling or difficult. It doesn't need to be the Da Vinci Code, right? It doesn't need to be a big Grisham book
Those are
either.
good books too.
I know. I'm saying, like, that's what I typically think of when I think of, more like mystery stuff. Obviously, Arthur Conan Doyle as well. This just seems like a more, paperbacky, quick, easy mystery tour, if you will. And I think it's successful at doing that.
to be honest, of all the King books we've read so far, this reminds me most of Doom McKee in the mindset of the feel of the character and the growth and everything like that. Story wise, now to your point of the crime based thing, I'm so glad our main character Aaron did most of the research and just handed it over to the side character Devin to explain it all the way. Apart from that one little the one little piece, the missing piece, and of course Devin's the only one that's going to notice. Oh, the hat tips back and forth. Shut up.
Yeah, that's a
it
random.
wasn't bad, but it was like
It was random.
yeah.
It was random.
So, all right. But yeah, does it fit the category? Sure, because it's a quick paperback crime novel. I can barely call this a novella.
It's a novel.
It is, but it fits the category of the paperback. You walking through Barnes and Noble, and you're not going to see this front facing. It's going to be spined.
That's true.
And
okay, I'll give you that.
It's going to be spined, and you might be like, "Oh, Stephen King. Let's see." Huh. You'd read, and okay, fine. You won't be mad about it, about being sold this as a crime drama and being what it is.
All right.
So I actually did come up with one final question. It's just kind of a fun one. Melissa, this really isn't fair because you've already done this. What job at Joyland would you do?
I'll let you guys answer first, and then I'll answer with my actual real life what I did answer.
I don't know. I think the jack of all trades thing that he kind of did, the happy helper, getting to experience kind of all facets of it. I think that's what I would enjoy, especially for like the first year there. You'd hate to get pigeonholed as, oh, well, you're just going to work skee ball all summer. Like, I don't know. I'd probably shoot myself in the face if I had to do one single thing with a bunch of rubes all fucking day. Like, that would be hard to stay motivated and sell the fun. I would get burnt out pretty quick on that until, I was able to get around and try all the different things and,
I guess
wear
I should revise
that.
As a happy helper, what would you look forward most to doing?
I don't know until I'm there. You got a job for me?
I want to wear the fur. I'm not gonna lie.
I think I'd have fun with that. Maybe
could
not
use
all
the
the
weight
time,
loss.
but to give it a shot, I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I'd want to do that and then be a carnery barker like Lane, doing that kind of thing.
I think that'd be the least exciting for me. I don't like shouting at people.
No, I don't like shouting at people, and I don't really
guy.
like people. I'm not either. I would be a Hollywood girl. And I say that because in the summer of 1996 at Six Flags St. Louis, that was my job. I was the, hi, stop, I'm going to take your picture. Like, I did that for an entire summer through Fright Fest. Like, and that was the most fun job ever.
That's the most jealous of a job any of my brothers and sisters ever had that, I wanted to do, but I became a lifeguard when I started working and stuff. And so that was a fun one, but I still wanted to go to Six Flags and work there.
So much fun. Like, I probably spent all of my money just driving there and back, but it doesn't matter. That was the most fun job I've ever had. That was just pure, like,
a quick side note, was it over Mid-America at that point, or was it at St. Louis at that point?
I don't know.
I'm just wondering.
It was Six Flags. Like, I just remember when it was Fright Fest time, whenever what's the song from Beetlejuice, the Shake Senora song?
Yeah.
Like, all of the photographers would stop and I would dance. That was my song.
Nice.
I am not that person anymore, but I was a Hollywood girl. Like, I get it. I loved it. And my uniform was better than the green dress. Thanks, I appreciate it. Okay, here we go. These are a few of my favorite things. What were yours?
All right, I'll start. Joyland itself. I love the carnival mid-sized amusement park thing. I spent my entire freshman year summer at Six Flags, not working, just got a season pass, got rides down there literally every 3 days. Had a blast and everything, and I can only imagine how fun it would be to work there and sell fun kind of thing. So, and I just love the way it was built up, and you felt like you were a part of the team. Just as a reader, you were a part of the Joyland team. So, yeah, the setting itself.
Yeah, wow, I agree with that. I came up with a different answer, but I really, that was something that is going to stick with me for sure. Like, I feel like we were watching like one of those reality shows, like about working at, one of these places. Like that, what's that? Extreme Land or whatever. It's like a documentary about what's it called?
Yeah.
Where's like the most
Kev
dangerous.
actually worked there. Our buddy
Yeah.
Kev, I believe he worked there for a time.
But either way, like it feels like that. Like I feel like we were learning how to talk the talk and walk the walk with them. Like I thought that was cool. And right along with that, I really loved how Dev was so real. And like it just, for what he's going through, I get it. Like I know how he's feeling with the whole Wendy thing, and how he's still gonna just go and keep putting his feet forward and working this job. And he loves his job, and that's like the only thing that gets his mind off of the really shitty thing going on in his life right now. And it's still difficult, but he does such a great job of working through it and making good friends. He doesn't shut down and,
Yeah.
disallow the people to still get to know him. I think if he was doing some other office job or something this summer, it'd be much worse for him. This get out there, outgoing, forcing you to be outgoing job that he gets is really what I think saves him from getting into a bigger rut than he probably would have. And yeah, I thought it was written very, very well. And yeah, I mean, I just enjoyed getting to know him and seeing him develop over this 8-month period.
I agree. I also think we were raised to love theme parks. I think that was like a big part of just us growing up because we were lucky enough to live near one. And I still love theme parks. I don't get to ride the big giant roller coasters anymore. I'm not physically allowed to, right? But I still love going and I love the feel and I love that. So I think Benji's answer is the right answer. And then I think Luke's is the next right answer because yes, like Devin is such a great character because like he's got faults, but he's just like a genuinely good person and everybody notices that. And I think it's one of the few times that the main character doesn't annoy me, right? Usually there's something about them that kind of bugs me. Like I just like Devin. Devin seems like a good guy. Even as a grown ass adult, he seems like a decent human being even now. So in the bits we get about his current life. Adding to that, Tom and Aaron, I loved their relationship. They were like, Tom was not an attractive guy. He was a bigger guy, but just had the best personality, even with his faults. And Aaron like just fell for him, but also like they both fell for Devin in like such an innocent and friend kind of way. I just liked that, their relationship, and then their relationship with him individually and as a couple. And I don't know, that made my heart happy.
No, I agree, and I do. It was just a throwaway line because this book's full of them. But Aaron made the line of, "If it wasn't Tom, it was going to be you," and
I would
like,
have made you forget Wendy.
yeah, I would have made you forget her. It's like, ooh, okay, and Tom, you might want to, just, hey, buddy, old pal, just a heads up. If you ever screw this up, I'm right here.
Okay.
This is gonna be a tough one.
Yeah.
For me.
I know.
This is gonna be a tough one.
I've been staring at this. Hold on. For a while. I don't know what to do. Because I have such like places in my heart for things, but
Yeah, there's there's still a couple in my opinion that are out of place. And
of course there are.
I know, and that's what makes it hard. Like,
I know. So, okay, I have mine in. So we have a little cell thing. Everybody types in their answer. We hit enter at the same time, and it calculates for us and tells us where to go.
all right, I'm good.
This list is making less and less sense as we go.
Yeah, I think we need to. Yeah,
We'll figure something else out after our 24th book. We'll see.
Yeah, because I'm out of space. That's the end of this year, basically, as we finish out, or might be a little bit longer. I don't know.
I have mine in.
You both are in the wrong spot.
Oh,
whoops. Wow. It's our first day on the job. Give us a break.
Right.
It's our first
We've
time
only
here.
been doing this for years. Okay,
17
Ready?
months.
hit enter. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I picked 9, Luke picked 5, Ben picked 3, giving
No, I
us
picked
an
7.
or sorry, Ben picked 7, giving us an average of 7. So
Okay.
it falls under Needful Things and above Gerald's Game, and I find that very interesting because I almost put 6. So I feel like, at least for me, I'm totally cool with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any
I
of you?
mean,
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
got the win, so I
you got it
won.
just right.
What do you get for picking exactly the right number?
So the reason I picked 5, just looking at that list,
Yeah, leave that up unless you don't mind.
I'm changing it really quick and
Oh,
then I
okay.
will put it right back up for you.
I basically looked at the list and I thought this book was better than Misery, and that's the only thing I went by.
Ooh.
Was I think it should be, and I knew it wasn't going to end up there, but in my just my feeling right now, I really enjoyed this book, and I wanted it to. It's just tough because it shouldn't be as far down as it is at this point, but that's okay.
Yeah, like,
it suffers
it
from us
throws
spending
me-
2 years on it, I think.
Yeah, it's the one that throws kind of the wrench in it because, like, I put this one. I like Misery better. I do like Misery better, so I'm
I
okay
agree
with.
you.
But like Needful Things was the one where I was like going back and forth. Do I like better than Needful Things, or because I almost put it at number 8 up against Gerald's Game, but I'm like, no, it's better. Or up against Doom McKee, but I'm like, no, it's actually better than Gerald's Game. And I don't know why Doom McKee's lower than Gerald's Game now. Now that I look at it, just anyway. But so I was like, yeah, I have to put it above that, and and I was like, okay, I'll throw it in 7 because this and Needful Things, I think those are like I put those tied for a 6 spot for me.
See, I think Needful Things should not be that high. Y'all know how I feel about Pet Cemetery. That was absolute crap. I think it and The Shining are way too far down the list. I truly believe they should be higher.
I don't
So-
think The Shining should be any higher.
Don't
Personally.
matter.
You're wrong, and that's okay. So here's what I did on it. Like I don't think it's better than Misery. I do think it's better than Needful Things, but I couldn't decide, so I went with half.
Sure.
I picked 9. I set it right in the middle. There's a lot that are worse. There are several that are better and more. Like this made me happy and fluffy, but I'm not gonna go back and feel like, man, I want to know what Devin's doing and I want to know how his life is. Whereas I want to know about our friend from 11/23/63. I want to know about Dolores Claiborne. I want to know about our friends from It. Like I still want to know how their lives are going, and I'm good with Devin. That's
Yeah.
kind of where I went.
And that's kind of where I went. Of the top 10, this was middle of the road for me, a little lower than middle. And that's why, I like the 7 spot for it. So, all right.
Yeah, so respectable on the list
Yeah,
though. I feel good about where it ended up.
I did too. Personally, I would put it at 8 and move it up to 4. That's about the only change I'd make.
Pet Cemetery's got to go.
Well, yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. It's got to go. It's just not that good. Okay. Final thoughts. What do you got, boys?
I recommend it. It's a good one, especially if you can get it cheap. Pick it up. It's a fun, quick read. I wouldn't want to spend too much on it, but $15 is reasonable. And yeah, I think most people will enjoy this one. Again, there's another one that I would like to see a non-Stephen King reader read this book. This would be a fun one because you only get hints of The Shine, nothing really mentioned, and so I like that, and I'd like to see a non-reader read this first.
Yeah, I would absolutely recommend this book. I thought it was light, fun. It's an easy. I mean, I read it for the 3rd time today, like just in a couple hours. Like it doesn't take that much, especially if audiobooking wise. Like on a reread, like it's pretty easy to speed up and just blitz through it again, and you don't really feel like you're missing much. Like just kind of getting the broad strokes again. I probably will reread this one at some point in the future. Like it's gonna stay on my list of. I don't know. It's almost like watching a Scooby-Doo episode. You've seen it 100 times, but it's okay to watch it again. And it's so light and quick, it's not a huge investment. Like, oh, man, I really want to read this 70-hour book again. I have some of those, and I do want to read them again. And if JD's still here, Cycle of Iran, I want to reread it. It only takes 70 hours to get through it because it's like 4 books, and I have it all in one file. It's a trip, but it's a bit more of an investment than this being done in a couple hours. So I would absolutely recommend this book. I think it's fun. It's an easy read, and it's good like chicken noodle soup.
I would totally recommend it for a very different reason. I feel like for the first time in a long time, all of his characters are redeemable and likable. And again, there's no, I mean, there is a clear bad guy, so I don't mean it that way, but there's nobody that doesn't have a relatable quality. A lot of the time, there's a couple characters that drive me crazy in books, and I like everybody in here, even the bad guy. So, like, I like living in book worlds with characters that I can be friends with, and I feel like I could be friends with these guys. So, good book, totally great.
Sure. And with that said, make sure you're following us on the socials at Floats Down Here on Twitter and Instagram. Send us your emails to floatsdownhere@gmail.com. Make sure you check out the podcastthat.com where the view is fair and the air is rare. See, I had to get something in. Also, make sure you subscribe, rate, and like us on iTunes and on YouTube under Drawbridge Media.
This show and all of the shows here at the podcastthat.com and Drawbridge Media are produced with the love and support of our wonderful Imaginary Legion patrons. You can learn more about the cool things we do for our patrons and the reward tiers for them at patreon.com/stayimaginary. We truly appreciate if you check that out.
So, we'll be back in June with Dr. Sleep, where we welcome back a now grown-up Danny Torrance from The Shining. Give it a reread, boys. And learn what the shine is like from an adult point of view.
You'll float too.
Stay imaginary.
Thanks.